So it's the day after St. Patrick's Day. Maybe you're sitting at home, hungover, and you're like, I want to watch some movies. Well, that's what we're here to give you. We're here to give you some movies that we think that you should probably check out, or maybe so much not to check out, right? So today we're taking a look at Replicas, which is a late 2018 film, right? We have Io, which is a sci-fi, drama, romantic kind of movie that was 2019, early this year. And then we also have a kind of throwback a little bit. It's not that throwback. It's 2015, but it's Bloodsucking Bastards. So those are our three. So let's get this going. So the first one we're going to take a look at is Replicas, okay? So this was starring Keanu Reeves and the very attractive Alice Eve, who plays his wife. And this is your basic, they're calling this an action kind of sci-fi thriller. Maybe not so much on the action in the beginning part, but it ends up turning into an action movie by the end, which is, I think, a lot of the reason this movie got so much flack from a lot of people, and including myself. So right now on IMDb, it is currently holding a 5.4, and I'm giving this a 5.5, so it's not much higher. And these are kind of the reasons why. So for the pros, at least, the visuals were kind of cool at times. I mean, it tried to make it look like we were in the semi-bit of future. The lab, the areas that they were working in, I mean, all looked pretty believable. But then that's pretty much where the pros end, and we start straight getting into the cons. So I don't want to spoil too much of this, but clearly a tragedy happens to Keanu. And obviously replicants, so he's working on some kind of formula and some kind of mind upload deal where basically you can transfer all the cognitive memories of the person to a replicant, basically a machine, and basically they would be able to live on and so forth. So kind of a cool premise. So one of the big cons I had was basically some of the visual effects when it came to the actual replicant, like robot itself, looked like totally old. Angry Joe had an awesome reference. He remembered it about being like RoboCop, the first RoboCop, where basically the robot comes out and kind of tears its face off. And anyways, he was totally right. I love RoboCop. I love that scene, and this is kind of what it felt like too. I mean, it just didn't look great. Now, mind you, this was a lower budget film, and I was wondering about this earlier tonight. I was just thinking to myself, so do you hold lower budget films, in a higher or lower regard, versus the higher budget films? And here's my point. So if you have this huge budget, you have 150, whatever, or plus $1 million, $100 million, you have all your top actors, you got all the top equipment, all the greatest people trying to, edit your film and do all the audio and visuals, all the great stuff. Should you hold them a little bit more accountable for making a bad film versus a lower budget film where they had to really work with just what they had? Maybe they weren't able to get all the top great actors, but they found some other cool ones. And, I mean, this is kind of one of those that kind of felt in between there, right? It's not a super high budget, but yet it wasn't super low budget either. I mean, they had Keanu in there, and Keanu's performance, although great at times, he was just really lacking the emotion, okay? And so I'm going to go ahead and throw a spoiler out there. It's not a huge spoiler because, I mean, if you've seen any of the visuals or any of the cover arts and stuff, you see he has a family, right? And something really, really bad happens to them. And as he's going through this process of basically getting ready to replicate them, although he looks like he's a mess and he's under a lot of stress, I'm just not sure that he had the true emotion that this film needed to help sell, to make us understand the choices he was making and what he was going through. I mean, if it was my family, I'd be a complete, total wreck, which kind of makes me wonder, he is a scientist after all, and maybe putting more of that, maybe that logic before the true heart, maybe that, using your brain more, a little bit more, maybe that kind of makes sense a little bit, maybe that was that void that was there. But so his performance was a little bit lacking, but I mean, overall, I mean, he worked the rest of it out. Alice Eve and the kids who played in there as his children, they did a pretty solid job overall. But then you had the corporate bad guy, and although I like him, and I'm going to have to look him up real quick because I do forget his name. Oh, that's right, John Ortiz. I like John Ortiz. He's a pretty good actor, but again, it's just the way he was kind of popping in and out, and it just didn't feel like it was just this really bad. He just kind of seemed like this corporate jackass. And then it finds out that he's something much, much more, and then the story just starts developing. I mean, I had a note in here that basically it kind of felt like we were watching a couple different types of movies. One that starts off as this kind of sci-fi drama, something bad happens to this guy, he's trying to fix it all, and then suddenly it turns into like this action, sci-fi, thriller, I wouldn't call it adventure, but it totally changes scope, and in a way that it's so noticeable. You're just kind of like, whoa, am I watching the same movie here? So overall, it's not a terrible movie. I mean, I have definitely seen worse, but you could probably overall skip this one. It is what it is. So if you love Keanu Reeves, you love a little bit of sci-fi, and the ideas of replicating people and what that would mean, but see, that's another part of the problem in itself. They didn't really get into all the deep thoughts of like, well, what happens if I replicate somebody and the problems and so forth. I was hoping that the movie was going to go a little bit different, like he replicates them and then they start behaving maybe in a bad way, or like they start glitching out because the transfer didn't fully take and so forth. So it definitely went a different route, an easier route, I'd say. And yeah, so overall, I gave it a 5.5, which is not much different than most people on IMDb as well. So anyways, take that as you will, and let's move on to the next one. So the next one I want to talk about is I.O., 2019 film, earlier this year came out. This is like a sci-fi, they called it a romance drama or so forth. The romance, I'd say, is probably the lower of the deal. I think it's more of like the drama. So basically, Earth is barren. It's gone bad. It's toxic and everything else. And most people have already left to go to this IO station that's basically orbiting, and they're kind of getting ready to find the next place that we can go live as humans and so forth. And there was a young lady who is still on Earth, and she's still doing like lab research and trying to get to grow things, and obviously not getting much luck and so forth. So she's supposed to be down there with her father as they're trying to, like I said, see if life can still be sustained on Earth. And meanwhile, she has a lover that's on the IO station. He's a scientist there. He's waiting for her to come up. And that's how the movie kind of starts off. So it just kind of unrolls from there. I will say that the lead actress, I would say Margaret Qualley, one of those two. But basically, she was pretty good at times. Sometimes her voice gets a little annoying because it seemed like kind of monotone at times. I think she started picking up on it a little bit better when the movie was about halfway, to the end. Maybe because another character comes into play, Anthony Mackie, which I must say did a fabulous job. He was very convincing. His acting is definitely sound and solid. Pushing past that of the Avengers and so forth, which he has a cool character on there as well. But here we got to see a different side of him. And also, you don't get to fully know his full motives of being there for a while, which kind of turns this into a little bit of a mystery, too. What is he doing when he finally meets the lead actress at her little, I guess, observatory station, where she has like a huge dish where she can see the IO station and see how they're doing. She has communication where she can talk to her boyfriend that's up there. She has all her lab equipment that, again, her father started it all, but she's kind of taking over the research. And again, you have to kind of find out, well, what's going on with her and her father and some other things. This is a slower flick, guys. That's not an action one. It's kind of like that mystery of what's going on / is Earth fully done and dying? Is it going to be able to sustain ever again? Or is it goodbye forever? I will say the visuals were pretty damn cool. It made you feel like you were actually in the area. This was a Netflix production. I don't remember the exact budget for this, but it might be out there somewhere on the webs. But when she made her trips into the city, I mean, they made it look barren and a wasteland filled and just dark and gritty and grimy, and so they did a fabulous job there. So again, this one got a 4.7 on IMDb. I think this has actually been decreasing over the last weeks, because I remember this one being, I thought, well above 5 a few weeks back, and I watched this about a week ago. So I'm actually giving this one a 6 out of 10. It's definitely worth a watch, I think, in my opinion, if you do like a good sci-fi kind of wasteland Earth type flick. But again, it's not a survival movie, survival per se, although it shows some ways of how she's trying to survive, because certain parts of the valleys and so forth are toxic. If you breathe in the air, you'll die, or you'll get super, super sick, and then you'll die. But I mean, there's no like mutants or zombies or any of that crap going on. Again, it's just kind of a slow drama flick. So I actually ended up kind of enjoying it overall. It was just kind of a calm, just kind of watch and see it unfold kind of movie. So if you think you might be into that, you might just enjoy this one. All right, so let's get to our last one. So this last one I want to talk about was Bloodsucking Bastards. It's a 2015 film. This is a little bit past. I missed this one along the way. I do enjoy a good horror, slasher, whatever, gory type films, and this one definitely did fit the bill. They're calling this basically an action and comedy, I guess, horror flick. So basically you have this guy who works at this company, whatever, just a desk job type thing. he's trying to do the right thing, keep his employees motivated and so forth, but all of his employees are very much, they play video games throughout the day, they don't really get their work done, they're doing as least amount of work as possible. The lead actors, which I gotta grab their names right quick, but it was Fran Kranz, and remember, he's from Cabin in the Woods, which was a few years back. And then also you have Joey Kern, when he was in Cabin Fever. He was the blonde-haired guy who made it all the way to the end. He was drinking only the beer throughout the movie or so forth, instead of actually eating food. So these two guys, they worked well together. They were really, really funny. It was just a kind of stupid humor type film, which was awesome. The gore was just right, I do believe, in my opinion, and extra bloody at other times once things start really getting after it. So to finish off the premise of it all, basically, this guy comes in and he's kind of taking over the company, and he's turning everybody into vampires. And as he does that, obviously they're becoming better workers and this and that. And there's a couple little, I wouldn't call them twists, but just kind of funny moments where you're like, oh, I didn't fully see that one coming. But again, it's just mostly about some gore, the comedy, and also the security guard that's in there. I don't remember his name, but the dude's hilarious. He's a total random. Like, you just don't expect him to do much of anything, and then by the end it's just like, oh, this guy can get down, and how it all turns out. So this one was pretty fun. I wanted to mention that the main villain is Pedro Pascal, I believe his name is, and he played Oberon on Game of Thrones. So it was kind of cool seeing him on there, and he played that totally corporate-y, kind of just douchebag, but in a great way. He did it right, and it was fun. The ending was cheesy, but it's called Bloodsucking Bastards. What do you expect? So this one had a 5.7 on IMDb. Z-Man score I'm giving this one is actually a 6.5. I would definitely watch this, especially if you love gore, if you love everything's bloody and vampire-ish type stuff. It's pretty solid, guys. It was a really fun, just sit back and just have some fun, make fun of it movie. So those are the three I wanted to talk about for today. I hope you enjoyed your St. Patrick's Day. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this review of these just quick ones. Again, this is just to get them out there, just to let you know if these movies are even worth checking out. And if you're wondering, well, why should I value your opinion? Well, I love everything cinema and everything movies. And although I'm not too terribly harsh on a lot of films these days, there are definitely ones we come across that we should just skip, right? There's so much content out there, and I feel I have a pretty down to the ground type of review over these movies, so that I should let you know whether they're worth watching or not. So again, hope you enjoyed this, and this is Movie Monday's Z-Man Show, and we will check you at the next review. Later.